And also, at the end of the session, I will be sharing the copies of my presentation to you, so you will be able to refer to it once you're done. So a very good morning to all. Thank you so much for joining me this fine Wednesday morning for the Scopus Author Profile Workshop for USM. My name is Nicholas, and I'm the Senior Customer Consultant over at Elsevier. I'm currently based in Singapore, but I can't wait to leave the country to visit y'all in Penang one of these days. Over the course of this session itself, if you have any questions, please type them in the Zoom Q&A box on the above. All right, so I'm quite excited to share today's presentation with you. There's quite a few bits of new information that we've recently been able to finalize, so I'm quite keen to share them with you. In today's session, I'll be talking about a few things, right? First and foremost, I'll be introducing what is new with Scopus, and there's actually quite a lot of new information and data that I'd like to share. This is more or less in the works for some time, so this is a perfect opportunity and platform to do so. Then I'll talk about how Scopus author profiles work, what goes on in the back end, how the data is generated, how author profiles can be featured to showcase your research, how you can collaborate locally within Malaysia and internationally, as well as how to create an ORCID. So first and foremost, what is new with Scopus? Just a very quick understanding to clarify the difference. The last time I did a session with USM, I talked about Science Direct. Science Direct is what we call a full text article database, and you have access to it as well. This is where you're able to read research articles in full. Scopus, on the other hand, is slightly different. Scopus is what we call an abstract and indexing database, an A&I database, where you're actually able to, Elsevier aggregates data from over 7,000 publishers. We are able to index it via a very stringent criteria, where actually we collaborate with a bunch of outside experts called the Contents Selection and Advisory Board, CSAB. You'll hear me refer to them multiple times, and we index it, right? So it's a very broad, holistic, and objective view of data that allows us to judge how the quality of the research abstracts and citations and indexes. This is what Scopus is. So what Scopus does is that it provides you with a very strong search, profile, metrics, APIs, and structured data so that you're able to progress, evaluate, and to reflect your institutions as well as your own individual research activity. We have over 85 million items, and we update this on a daily basis. We feature over 94,000 organization profiles, over 17 million researcher profiles, 3.5 million awards, and 450 funders. And we collaborate with over 27,000 conference serials, book titles, 140,000 conferences, 253,000 books, with 5,400 active global access journals from over 7,000 publishers in 105 countries. So about 11,000 articles are indexed per day, and we are able to see this across a range of metrics like journal, article, and author, researcher profiles, organizational profiles, content, structured search, as well as data exports and APIs. So what Scopus is able to do is that it allows you to progress, evaluate, and to reflect your research. With intuitive, powerful search, with trusted and comprehensive content, with powerfully linked data, which is disambiguated and connected to key research entities, and an accurate reflection of your research entities that's structured with linked flexible data, which is meant to scale, integrate, and to meet your most stringent demands and highest value decisions. So this would also allow you to support you across your careers, from students to advanced researchers, instructors, faculty, editors, and team leads to get trusted content, profile, and intuitive access. We have powerful search and filters. We talk about searching and filtering the other time, which allows you to show insights within your own workflows. Today, we'll be talking about author profiles, right? And we'll be talking about research profiles to power researcher networks and to advance your careers. In the subsequent session, we talk about organizational profiles, right? To inform you of analysis. And what is underpinning this is a strong curated, multidisciplinary and current global content, which will inspire your confidence. What we continuously want to do is to improve the overall speed and usability in terms of access, what we call research signals and discovery and analysis, right? So that you're able to progress your research. And a strong way to do so would be to inform evidence-based researcher and organizational evaluation by helping faculty, team leads, librarians, administrators to populate reports, assessments, and analysis. So we talk about the content selection advisory board. They will curate data set of sources with strict reassessment policies. We'll cover this more in the slide that we'll be talking about later. We'll talk about research analysis landscape that would inform policies for organizational hierarchies. We talk about disambiguation technology for author and organizational names, and to constantly improve the overall accuracy and completeness of it all. So this actually allows you creates an intuitive platform with trusted content and robust search and analytics to help you progress and to evaluate research activity. Today, we'll be talking about researcher impact, right? So you're able to get a comprehensive view of researcher output and engagement to understand responsible, transparent evaluation using an array of journal, article, and researcher metrics. We help you to gain visibility of researchers and your work to support collaboration, networking, and career development with trusted researcher profiles that offer a range of metrics and indicators. And how we're able to do this is through the whole range of 1.7 billion cited references of data going back to 1917. You find that actually how the data set comes through is very interesting because we have actually very specific granular data sets at author, institutional, journal, and article levels, right? This comes across through articles, book chapters, conference proceedings, funding data, traditional metrics, and then we use this to create institutional author profiles. So what we have done in 2021 was to actually improve on everything. So for some of you who have been with us for some time, you probably observed that the Scopus author profile pages have really been improving and increasing all the time. We've improved and expanded the current functionality to provide additional information and context. We also work on the author feedback wizard in 2021 to make the workflow more intuitive. You can now edit preprint and to include grant data, right? Other improvements and updates would also include document detail page and metrics, where you can see view count metric, Scopus author profile previews. You also are working on SDG updates at an article level, as well as topic updates. So we talk about this later as well. We also have preprint content in author profiles, where SSRM preprints are joining the content base, and we have worked to include information from 4 other major preprint servers since January. We have included funding data as well as open access filters. Scopus data is being leveraged on by QS University rankings, as you're familiar with, Times Higher Education. Over in Asia Pacific, we work together with Thailand Citation Index, TCI, the National Research Foundation in Korea, Nanyang Technological University over in Singapore, Beijing University, and Keio University. We talk about how there is very comprehensive coverage, but I think also very crucially, we also showcase global representation across a whole range of titles, right? From having about 6,600 journals in North America, 12,000 in Western Europe. I'll draw your attention over to Asia Pacific, where we have about 2,230 titles. This is growing at a very rapid rate, and we have about 265% more than our nearest competitor in terms of a citation index. And we place a very big emphasis on growing content over from Asia Pacific as well. So you can see that in terms of a global representation, this is actually pretty strong. You heard me mention about the Content Selection and Advisory Board, the CSAB team. This is an independent board of subject experts from all over the world. They are journal editors, and they are chosen for their expertise in specific subject areas, many of whom have editor experience. The CSAB has approximately about 17 subject chairs. What they do is that there's a very strong and stringent selection and re-evaluation process. I'll showcase to you in just a quick bit, but there is 17 rigorous and transparent quality and ethics selection criteria, which is used to evaluate potential titles. At the same time, what you may be familiar with is that there's a very regular re-evaluation of existing content where we discontinue titles which no longer meet the guidelines. So for instance, 536 titles were removed between 2016 to 2020. What we do is that every year, 3,500 titles are suggested to us on average. Only 40% meets the minimum criteria, of which only 46% are accepted after the CSAB review, which means that we index approximately about 630 journal titles every year. So approximately about 1/6 to 1/7, right? So that's really the numbers that we are looking at for successful indexing of a journal. It's not to say that we don't want to index journal titles, but it's that we have very stringent quality and standards that we want to adhere to, which is why we go through multiple stages in terms of evaluation. How this works, right, is that all titles have to meet all technical criteria, these 5 criteria, to be considered for Scopus review. We'll cover this in much more detail in a separate session. But to showcase to you, this 5 would include peer review. They need to have English abstracts. They need to be published regularly. You need to have Roman script references and a publication ethics statement to showcase and to declare that what you're doing is ethically correct and you're part of COPE, the Code of Publication Ethics. It is only then that the eligible titles are then reviewed by the CSAB based on 14 selective selection criteria in terms of journal policy, content quality, journal standing, publication regularity, as well as online availability. In terms of a convincing editorial concept and policy, types of peer reviews, a diverse geographic distribution of editors, a diverse geographic distribution of authors, right? The quality of the academic contribution to the field, the clarity of abstracts, the quality and conformity with the aims and scopes, the legibility and readability in terms of the articles, the citedness of the journal articles in Scopus, the editor's standing, not having delays in publication schedule, to have a content that's available online, to have an English language journal homepage, as well as the quality of homepages. So these are the 14 selection criteria. I'll have to correct myself. It's 14 selective criteria as well that we're referring to. Someone's asked, yes, this would actually include journal titles in terms of English abstract, in terms of having an English title, so people know what's being communicated. What we're doing is that we're committed to creating a representative, curated data set of scholarly content. So what happens is that our journal selection criteria is based on journal level data and performance. We monitor and we deselect titles that are predatory and below standards. But what we cannot do is to intervene on and to interfere with the editorial autonomy of the journals. So we cannot go at an article and conference level. We cannot intervene in terms of the content that's being included on the database. We cannot monitor the plagiarism and the publication malpractice of individual articles, nor can we intervene with the authorship of the paper. So there's some limitations that we can work with, right? So think of it this way. Scopus, we work together with publishers. So we can only liaise at a publisher level. We cannot intervene at the editorial level, at an article level or abstract level, so as to speak. This is really over and due to the publishers that work together with the editors. And this is why actually what we can do is to monitor the overall standards they are going through. We can monitor the overall output that's coming in, and we can review them approximately once a year, right? So what happens is that if publication malpractice is occurring knowingly and on a structural basis, without a policy to address and to prevent such cases, Scopus will flag, reevaluate, and then potentially discontinue the titles. This is what we can do. So another question that people tend to ask, especially something that was very active last year, was the definition of predatory journals, right? So predatory journals, the definition of it has been very contentious. In 2019, a group of researchers met to define what predatory publishing is, and we are able to finally come up with a consensus definition. Predatory journals and publishers are entities that prioritize self-interest at the expense of scholarship and are characterized by false or misleading information, deviation from best editorial and publication practices, a lack of transparency, the use of aggressive and indiscriminate solicitation practices, right? A very key part of this statement is entities that prioritize self-interest at the expense of scholarship. What I mentioned earlier, what we could do and what we couldn't. What we can do is that poor quality journals that have lower than average performances could still be relevant to cover in Scopus. So these are niche journals. So people sometimes ask, hey, Nicholas, this journal has a very low research metrics, right? And research signals. Why are these journals still included? Because they could be niche. The research published in these journals could be still be of high quality, and the journals do not necessarily need to be removed from Scopus, right? That's one explanation. But what we can do is that predatory journals that we mentioned, they are a threat to science and they should be avoided to be covered in Scopus. They would benefit from wider global visibility, which would increase impact in terms of an increase in impact and quality. And sometimes this doesn't happen this way. The journals may become predatory with time. So when you're making decisions about research, right, it's very important that I help you and we can able to support you to guide the decision-making process. So what you can do is to make it based on data you can trust. So what Scopus, and Scopus takes this view very, very seriously, which is why journals that are a threat to the integrity of Scopus and science in general, these are a threat. We deal with them very, very severely and very importantly. Another thing people would also highlight is that predatory publishing is ill-defined and subject to personal interpretation. So it's very important that you're able to review the journals by experts in the field. We talk about how the title coverage was like. This is something which I thought would be interesting to you. When the title suggestion form comes in and is being put in through the publisher, editor, or the board member, we would go through a minimum criteria check and have a feedback. If the criteria is not met, right, then it will be placed on embargo for 5 years. People will be asking why is it so strict? It's because the editors have a limited bandwidth of scope of work. So if you keep submitting it every single month or year, they will just be inundated with it. It's very important that you get your journal submission right the first time round so that it doesn't get rejected, right? This is something which we do. One of the things that we do with the local boards is that we do what we call a title enrichment to make it even better. Because the whole point is to, when it's released to the Content Selection Advisory Board for review, the feedback will be positive and will be accepted within Scopus. We talk about how Scopus will constantly evaluate and re-evaluate. What happens is that when there's feedback from users and stakeholders on poor performing journals, they get identification of poor performing journals, and there's a radar to predict journals with outlying performance. The CSAB would then curate the content. We talk about continuously re-evaluation. This is how we do it over a 2-year period. We'll flag it, and then what we call is we discontinue the forward flow, or we can carry on with it. So over to author profiles. In the meantime, if you guys have any questions, please type them in the Q&A chat. I'll do my best to check it as soon as I can and I'll address your queries. Or if not, there will be a Q&A at the end of it all. So Scopus is really the premier source of profiles. It includes both author and affiliation profiles and includes over 17 million author profiles. We are the only database which implements an algorithmic and systematic author disambiguation with a high accuracy to create and to maintain precise author profiles. And you can make changes using the author feedback wizard. So what we do is that we use a state-of-the-art technology with comprehensive, manually curated knowledge bases to profile authors and organizations. Because at the end of the day, we realize that even though we do and we can automate data, we still have to work with everyone to make sure that the accuracy is best reflected, right? And there's some ways, and one of the examples that I can share would include a German author, two German authors, similar exact last name, from the similar faculty working on a similar topic, but they are two separate individuals, right? So how can we disambiguate? How can we separate these authors' profiles separately? This is something that we actually have to do manually, right? And we can work with the researchers to do so. So it's very important because we know we need to help everyone to understand who is researching what and where with what accuracy than any other database, right? And this is something that we do very well. So how we can showcase research? So I would say first and foremost, try accessing Scopus. I want to make sure this is dynamic, this is live, you're able to do it while I'm walking you through the entire process, so you're able to understand better. So there are two ways that you can look for author profiles within Scopus. The first one I'm showing you is on the initial start page under documents. So if you're looking for, say, research documents, you can look for a keyword. You can look for COVID-19. It's a very common phrase right now. A lot of research is being generated on it, and we can look for, say, authors with the last name of Fauci, right? We all know Professor Fauci. He's a very established name in the domain. He was also constantly speaking out about it. So let's take a look at what sort of research he's looking at it, right? This is one way for you to take a look at documents written by Professor Fauci. The other thing you can do is to go to under authors, right? And you can look for Professor Fauci's last name, his first name, and then you can see that this would give you a very strong and clear author profile. The other alternative which we can do is to put in his ORCID ID, right? I would encourage everyone to create a researcher ID because this helps with this author disambiguation, makes you unique within Southeast Asia, Malaysia. When you put in your last name and your first name, sometimes there'll be similarities. It happens. So my last name is Park, which is Bai or white in Chinese. Sometimes, and Nicholas is a very common first name, right? So Nicholas Park, sometimes you get me very similar names, which is why it's important to have ORCID IDs. So over at USM, you have about 11,315 affiliated authors. You have a Professor Fun, a Professor Ismail, Professor Zainuria, Professor Hassali, right? I would 100% say that sometimes the first name and the last name are not always consistent. This is something which we can work on and we are looking to make better as well. Let's take a look at Professor Zainuria, right? We can see that Professor Zainuria over in USM, based in Minden, where you guys are, she has an ORCID ID, it helps a lot. She has 695 documents with almost 6,881 citations with a H index of 37. This is a very impressive profile. You can see that she published very actively. The number of citations are also increasingly with time as well, which is great because it shows that her research productivity is really increasing and improving. I'll bring your attention over to topics, right? But topics is something which I really like. I think it showcases overall the efficacy of the research. You can see what's the key most topic and subject areas you're working on, as well as the citations, the subtopics in terms of research that's categorized based on SciVal. We can see the document counts as well, right? All of this, very powerful. We can see all this represented over here, right? 6,881 citations by 4,969 documents. We can see preprints, co-authors, topics, and awarded grants. These are currently in beta and they are new additions to Scopus author profiles. And one thing that we get very, very often, right, is how can we edit our profiles? So I would say it's very straightforward. You can click on edit profile over here, that you can see on the bottom left corner of this, you can proceed to make the change, right? You can choose a name preference, a drop down. You can select this completely. And then you can say, are you making changes for Professor Fauci, or are you submitting the request on behalf of someone else, right? This is actually a very good way to do so. They'll give you another point where you can review all of the documents that you have to make sure that these documents are yours, or if not, are not yours. You can look for documents which are missing here. If not, if you feel that documents are not represented in Scopus, drop us a note. Sometimes the documents may not be indexed on Scopus here. So to give you a very quick idea of how documents are updated on Scopus, right? It's not on a manual basis. Scopus would have to rely on documents which are uploaded by the publishers. So if you're a very large publisher that you have published your research with, the publishers would automate it. This is what we call the data links, right? And the indexing will occur that way. But we all know all of this is not 100% foolproof. Sometimes there'll be one or two articles that do not get pushed through automatically. So please feel free to reach out to us, to Scopus, the Scopus support team. Let them know if that article which is supposed to be indexed and is published on the publisher's side, if it's not updated on Scopus, let us know. And then we can reflect this for you automatically, right? A good way for you to do so would be to take a look at the journal, right? Look at the issue and volume number. If the volume number is actually already updated on Scopus, it means that that particular volume and issue have been indexed in it. So that is one way for you to check if the volume and issue of the journal that you have submitted to us is currently indexed or not. This is a good way for you to check. All right. So going back to the author profile, this is one way for you to search for the missing documents, right? And then to put in the article title and the abstract, and then you can submit it over to us. And then you can review the affiliation, and then you can confirm, and then you can submit over to us. People tend to always ask us, hey, Nicholas, what is actually the H index? What is the meaning of all these metrics? So the H index is really a standard scholarly metric in which the number of published papers and the number of times the author has been cited is put into relation. So it's looking at the median count. The formula is based on the number of papers that have been cited, H, and how often these papers are compared to papers that have not been cited or cited as much. So we can see Professor Fauci, right? His 178 H index. This is because he has 178 citations. We see that it's not 179 because it's not equivalent to 176, right? It has to be equal or more, right? So it could actually have been 177 because he has 178 citations, but we choose 178 because it's a more accurate reflection, so to speak. So yes, Prof. Fauci has a H index of 178 because he has 178 publications that be cited at least 178 times. The rest are left side. Okay, a couple of questions in the chat. So someone's asking, how should a graduate approach his or her own researcher profile on ORCID? Should you create one before publishing any paper, or you can wait till you've published a paper? I would say you can do the latter. Both approaches are not wrong, I would say. It's very important, and I think it's great that you're asking this question right now, because the sooner you start, the better, right? Because you can create a profile without any papers being published. So the moment it's published, you can pull it into your profile, right? Or if you have one or two papers being indexed, then you can pull it in. I would say the sooner you start, the better, because it just means that you just have less to do subsequently in the future. How often does Scopus update the profile? You've published a paper in Scopus Index, but it didn't appear on your Scopus profile. That's a good question. So like I mentioned earlier, you can publish a paper in the index journal, right? What you can do is to take a look at that journal, take a look at the latest volumes and issue that's been published and indicated on Scopus. So Scopus actually updates it. Articles and abstracts are updated on a daily basis, but sometimes the indexing doesn't come through from the publisher until maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, right? So if you want a correction to be made, if you find that this issue has already been uploaded, but your article is not inside, you can make a manual request with us. This will take about 2 to 3 weeks for it to come through, because we have to go back to the publisher and pull it from the data bank or get it from them directly itself, right? So hopefully this answers your question, but the best way for you to do so is to check what is the latest issue that's been indexed on Scopus, because we pull our data from the publisher side. All right, so I'll carry on first, and I'll do a live demonstration in just a quick bit. Actually, you know what? I want to do the live demo right now. So I think this will be more interesting and fun. So give me 1 second. And you can let me know if you guys can see my screen. All right, so just what I did over here, we talk about how you can look at documents, authors. I want to show you actually how you get it from affiliations, right? So if I type in Science Malaysia, you can see this pops up automatically, right? USM is the umbrella affiliation. We have the sub-affiliations like the Health Campus, Medical Sciences, Engineering Campus, and Pharmaceutical Sciences. But for the purpose of an overall arching view, we take a look at the documents and of the whole affiliation, right? Or we can just simply go to authors. Let's take a look at this view here. So under here, this is actually something we can see, right? 11319, Professor Fun. Let's take a quick look at it, because 2,652 articles is no joke. Let's take a look at what Professor Fun is doing in what research areas. We see that here's the ORCID ID, right? H index of 58, which is really high. His last published probably research paper, 2016, so which is why he's still represented here. And then we can take a look at topics. So areas that he's very strong in would probably seem like it's in terms of crystal structure, fluorescence, dihedral angles and crystal structures and phenol, as well as membranes and ultrafiltration. Okay, so these are some of the topics that he's very strong in over the past 5 years. When you want to know more about what these topics are, because sometimes you can see that, oh, the first important thing I'll bring your attention to is FWCI, right? So this is topic field-weighted citation impact. It doesn't look at the pure citations, it looks at the citations compared to the other citations within the same field, right? So it normalizes it so that you have a better overview in terms of the efficacy of the research. Let's take a quick look at these 2 papers, right? You can see this couple of the other papers that are representative within these topics, how many times it has been cited, and you can see the author documents as well, right? Who are the people producing this research in these areas. I would say these are very good ways for you to understand the topic itself and to know what it's about. Sometimes it's very long, it takes some time to load, but you can see these are some of the top researchers in this area that are focusing and prioritizing these research topics. Maybe these are additional researchers that you may want to reach out to collaborate with, right? Let's take a look at another researcher as well. Professor Ismail. You see Professor Ismail is still very active in 2022. He or she has actually published approximately about 6 documents with 417 citations. So you can see it's very, very impactful. We can take a look at the latest research that's being published. We can see all these papers are being published in the Polymer Engineering and Science, the Journal of Applied Polymer Science, Polymer, Pigment and Resin Technology, etc. If you want to know what the latest research is about, you can see and click on this small arrow over here. You'll be able to see the abstract, right? I think that's very useful. Sometimes you want to take a look at what is the most highly cited research that the researcher has contributed. This goes back to 2005 under Thermoschema Acta. We click on the abstract, we can find that the thermal characterization of aluminum as well as zinc oxide, which reinforce silicon rubber as thermal pads for heat dissipation purposes, right? Some of the research that you'll be able to find. Let's take a quick look at its topics. We can see that this researcher's topic would be in terms of mechanical properties in Sisa and Hua. When we click on this, you'll be able to find out more information. So these are the representative documents within the topic, so you have an understanding for the central research question of it. They have many topic links, and a high fraction of the links are within the topic, and they are very highly cited for their age. So these are the representative publications, right? So maybe you can take a look at these topics, and then you can find out who are the top research authors. You may want to work and collaborate with them if you find that this is similar to what you're working on and working with, right? So just to give you a very quick idea of these authors' documents that are in this topic overviews, to give you more detail about it. And we can see that at every single article level, we can see what's the field weighted citation, right? So we can see that it's been cited 21 times, it's FWCI of 0.54. For this specific one, right, this one is a bit different. It's been cited twice, but it's a FWCI of 1.2. This one has been cited 8 times with FWCI of 3, right? We can see that there's a variance across of it based on the subtopics and the subtopic links. Something very interesting for you to know as well. Okay, so this is quite useful. Another one for you to know and identify the co-authors will be to take a look at, well, co-authors, right? So we're able to see Professor Ismail's co-authors. These are the researchers that have been collaborated with the most often, over about 60 times to 30 times. Are these people that you may want to reach out to collaborate? Possibly, if you find that the work has interest to what you're doing. So there are many ways for you to identify and to understand what collaborators are currently working on. This is possibly a very good way for you to reach out to, to work with them. So let's take a quick look at it, right? Another way to clean up your profile. Since we are already here, we click on edit profile, it brings you this page. So nope, this is not my profile. I'm requesting changes for someone else. You can see the preferred name drops here, the preferred affiliation. Of course, it'll be under USM. I'm not going to change this. We can take a look at these documents. If you find that the document is inaccurate, you could remove a profile. Make sure that you know what you're doing. But then if there are any documents that are missing, you can search for it and then you can type it in as well. If there are preprints here, you can look for it on Scopus. And if there are grants there, you can do so as well, right? Then only approximately once we have more, with any missing documents, let's take a look at polymers, right? Then maybe you want to feel that this one is something that you can do, you can add it to the profile as well, right? Etc. And then what we do is actually quite smart. We will actually search for the authors because we want to make sure that this is correct, right? So if Professor Ismail's name is not here, we cannot proceed to do so. So yeah, so once the changes are done and it's made, then this is something that you can add onto it, and then we'll process the changes for you. It's very straightforward, it's very simple, it's very ergonomic. I think many researchers like this because it's just a marked improvement overall. Okay, so anytime you have any additional questions about what I've just shown you, feel free to let me know. I'll be happy to, well, go through it in more detail. But going back to the presentation. So we talk about how you could collaborate internationally and locally. This is one way to do so. We talk about the topic pages, right? And topics is really a collection of documents with a common focus interest, and we cluster it based on a direct citation analysis. You can find this all about this over here. So one thing that you probably want to know is that this is updated once in the middle of the year. So 2016 to 2020 was the most updated version of it. For 2017 to 2021, this would take probably about May to June of the year, right? Because we tend to have a cutoff time for benchmarking. So site score, for instance, 2020 would only be consolidated in May to June of 2021 when all of the papers are fully consolidated, and then we just say a couple of months for the data to settle, right? So we also do analysis on a 5-year basis because it's just more consistent that way. For site score, we're looking at a 4-year basis from 2016 to 2020. This is a temporary 20, yeah. So for the time being, this is what you'll be getting, 2017 to 2020, my apologies. We talk about co-authors, how you can take a look at the view and take a view of it in a search results format as well. These are the ones where Professor Fauci, for instance, collaborate the most with his co-authors, right? So this actually really is useful because it helps to support career growth and development, right? You're able to guide researchers to discover, enhance, and to benefit from your researcher profile, which is created with an authoritative information and to expert linking, which is boosted by metrics analysis. We want to help researchers to identify potential collaborators and mentors with citation views, saved lists, alerts, and robust author analysis. Then we can map the career trajectories of field leaders to inform your own goals. We want to encourage an understanding of research usage and impact with an array of document and author level metrics and indicators to inform you of funding opportunities, collaboration opportunities, where you can effect publication changes to understand assessment and to have stronger career development strategies, right? So for instance, if there's a topic that you want to grow into, this is a area that you will pivot to by taking a look at your overall citation and publication and citation analysis. You can decide if how is your productivity shaping up? Is this where you'd like it to be at? How would you like it to be more, right? So this gives you a whole range of metrics and analysis that you could probably want to focus on to really improve your overall profile. This also helps to showcase excellence with an array of metrics. We talk about site-score, we talk about H-index. We'll cover PlumX metrics in just a bit. But one thing that we always do is that metrics always offer a strong way to demonstrate your impact. The more varied and transparent the metrics, the richer the story. I want to showcase to you something about PlumX. So PlumX, I think, is really cool. This is basically what we call as alt metrics, alternative metrics. They are comprehensive item-level metrics, which provides insights into the way people interact with individual pieces of research output. So you can visualize scholarly engagement. We divide this into 5 categories of metrics in terms of usage, where people click, download, view, and play the videos that's been indexed. Captures, which is bookmarked and favorited on like platforms like Mendeley. You can see the number of mentions in terms of blog posts, comments, Wikipedia links, number of likes on social media, as well as citations with citation indexes, patent citations, etc. Something which I think really is nice, right? And we click on the overall publication under the metrics, you'll be able to see all of this. And then when you go into this into more detail, you'll be able to see what are some of the comments that you can find on Twitter. And I think that this is something that you may want to leverage on because I think it's really good and useful. You can showcase this during your presentation for your promotion and tenureship. You can talk about how your research was very positively accepted and taken and how it's been consumed. So it's not just only via citations, right? Because we know that not all research disciplines are the same, right? Some disciplines will generate more citations than others, but it's not as if to say the impact of this should be marginalized. So we can talk about few-weighted citation impact when you're comparing metrics. We can also talk about if it's a very, very new area of research, right? And there's really no comparison, then you can talk about how it's being consumed across other platforms, right? Like blog posts within an esteemed domain, when it's being cited or being commented on Twitter, for instance, because that is the platform where academicians converge and share the information with, right? Just some level of alternative metrics that we like to support you on. So another way that you could also do, and one way I would encourage you all to do at the same time is if there's a very niche area, like say Islamic studies, what you could do is you can take a look at it, right? You browse at Islamic studies, for instance, and then you can identify, hey, these are the institutions in Malaysia where these topics are very strong in, right? You can find that it's UKM, IUM, they're very strong in this. Go into these institutions and then see which author from these institutions are experts within the domain so that you can reach out to collaborate with them on, right? You can look at it from, say, either a local basis in terms of a Malaysian perspective or international basis, right? So you can find that SOAS, University of London, is very strong in this. Maybe this is someone that you want to work with, right? Or Istanbul 29 Mayıs University, that's something that you may want to reach out to as well. This really helps to build and to consolidate your global collaboration network, And I think this would be very useful for you too. Then from here, you can also browse over it, and then you can see who the top researchers in these areas are. You may want to reach out to them, collaborate with them, see how it goes. How you can create an ORCID. So what ORCID is, for those who don't know, I think some of you know about it, so I don't have to go into the nitty-gritty of it, but ORCID really helps to establish a transparent and trustworthy connection between researchers, their contributions, and their affiliations by providing a unique identifier for individuals to use as they engage in research, scholarship, and innovation activities. And this is done by 3 related services: the ORCID ID, unique identifier free of charge to researchers, an ORCID record, which is connected to the ORCID ID, and a whole set of APIs, which provision support and services of communities of a practice that enable interoperability between the ORCID record and member organizations. So researchers can choose to allow connection of their IDs with affiliations and contributions. Over here at Scopus, at Elsevier, we allow them to ORCID to import the works from Scopus to ORCID, to import their identifier, author identifier, profile, and publications from Scopus. So this allows you to find the correct Scopus profile and confirm which publications are yours. You can then send the identifier and a list of the publications to the ORCID website, and any changes that you make in the wizard will also be submitted to the feedback team to correct your profile on Scopus. This is something that we are working together with the ORCID team itself. So ORCID is very straightforward. Just register, you use your ORCID ID, and you can share your ORCID ID, right? It's free to actually create your identifier. So someone was asking, should I create one before if I have no publications? You can do it straight away, right? And you don't need to have a profile right now. Then it would use your ID in systems and platforms to manuscript submissions to ensure that you get credit for your submissions, and then you can share your ORCID ID, and this is better for you as well. So straightforward and easy to use. Okay, so there's actually a whole range of supporting information that I would like to share with you now. First and foremost, right, we actually have an upcoming presentation over in April 26th. This is conducted at a global Malaysian level, so feel free to join this Scopus community sessions as well. That's being organized for the 20 public universities. We'll be covering a range of topics, including Scopus author profiles, how you can access, edit, and maintain them. The next one will be the May 31st, where we talk about research methods in Scopus, where you can unsend citations about H-index and Plumex. The next one in June the 28th will include journal conferences and books, how you can find the right ones to publish in. We'll cover preprints, topics, and funding acknowledgements on August the 16th. And in September the 27th, we'll talk about United Nations SDGs, what they are, and how you can find relevant data. So I'll be co-presenting all these sessions with my colleague Sander. He's a senior customer consultant for research intelligence. We'll be having 1-hour workshops where we have Q&A sessions, and we can look to engage with you on this. For those who are interested in this, feel free to click on this and scan the QR code to register with us. I will, of course, be sending this over to you, or you can take a screenshot so you can scan the QR code at your own time, right? So these sessions are actually very interesting and very engaging. It'll be a very dynamic session. We'll be talking and bouncing questions off each other. You can bounce questions at us. We do our best to answer them as well. Apart from that, we have a whole range of resources that will support you. For the librarians who are on the chat, we have a Scopus certification program for librarians, which is actually very, very good. I've seen the topics and the development, very good questions, very good guides. For those who want to know more about Scopus, we will onboard you and to engage you with the Scopus Librarian Guide or the Scopus info site. We have a Library Connect Academy to give you the latest updates on what is going on in the world. We have a Scopus user emails and alerts with the Librarian Toolkit, and of course, you will be able to find more information on the Scopus blog as well as the Scopus Twitter. So there's a whole range of dedicated customer consultants to support your entire user experience. There was me, of course, and there'll be Sander as well. We can customize an onboarding program for librarians and users, which is currently what we are doing by doing this author profile session workshop over with USM. One thing we're doing better is to have in-product messaging to support user onboarding and engagement. So you can find tooltips along the way. One thing which I think is really useful with the Scopus support hub. So if any questions that you feel that you need technical support on, click on the support hub, or you can just type Scopus support hub on Google and we'll bring you to the site itself. There's a Scopus librarian guide, Scopus blog, additional information. I'll send this over so you can click on this. I always like supporting researchers to find journals where they can get their papers to be indexed on. This Elsevier Journal Finder to get published in, it's a free resource which allows researchers to find journals and to that are the best suited to publish your scientific research article. This is powered by the Elsevier fingerprint engine. We use smart search technology and field of research vocabularies to match your article to Elsevier journals. It's very straightforward, right? Type in your paper title, put in your abstract, put in the keywords and the field of research areas. You will come up with a whole range of journals which are optimal for what you're looking for to publish in. We showcase the site score. We showcase the impact factor. We also talk about the acceptance rate. So you can see that, Elsevier journals, the acceptance rate isn't 0, but it's also not like 99%, so it's about 23%. We talk about, say, the time to first decision, which is like 5 weeks, and the time to publication, additional information. We showcase which journals support gold open access and support journals with subscription as well, right? The whole range of metrics we provision to you. For those of you who are early researchers, there is a Researcher Academy. I really like this. I think it's a strong online platform which takes you through the different phases of the research cycle, from research preparation, the publication process, and how you can demonstrate impact, right? So it showcases how you can prepare you for your career, either within or outside of academia, how you can get funding, how you can get papers accepted in top journals, and this is a completely free service. Just go to researcheracademy.elsevier.com. You'll be able to find all these details right over here. Okay, so this is the end of the session. I would say that for those of you who are interested in getting the certificate, take a screenshot of it. I will trouble you to actually complete a survey, and I would say this actually goes a long way for us to understand what you feel about the session. I would say please be kind with the comments as well. For you to get your certification, you can copy the code and paste it in from around the same site, and then this will allow you to redeem it, the certification for the course. All right, but we have a couple of minutes left here, so I would like to take a look at the chat and the Q&A to see what other questions you have. So yes, the links to these webinars will be provisioned here. Right, to make life easier for you, what I will do right now is I'll copy and paste the survey and the codes within the chat so that you don't have to find it. So give me one quick second. Yep, I'm doing that right now. Here you go. This should make life a bit easier for you. In the meantime, if you have more questions, please type them in the Q&A box. That is where I'll be able to address it. Oh, some people are asking a lot of questions. Let me try to address it first. The affiliation organization, when you're putting your own ID, I would say is useful. So what I suggest that over for Scopus, right, what we do is that we track every stage that you have published with the affiliation that you're affiliated to at the point in time. So if you take a look over there, you'll be able to see those are all of the universities that the researcher have published with over their research career. Some people will ask, how do I update my latest affiliation profile on Scopus? That answer is actually very simple. It's automatically updated once you have published your latest research. And then that is when the affiliation is updated. I'll say 1 or 2 publications is enough. If you feel that you want to make changes to it, just make it via the author feedback reset. You have option to do so. Yes, so yeah, I guess that's the answer to the question as well. It's based on, you inherit it in a way from the date tag, right? From the time where the paper was published. Sorry, let me put it this way. So when you publish your latest work, right? So for instance, if you just move over to USM from UM, you might have published work from UM previously, but you're looking to publish a work from USM right now, right? So we can only update it once you have published a work when you are with USM as of the moment. That is when we can update it automatically. Or if you feel that it's not an automatic update, then you can manually adjust it under the author feedback reason. That's how we can do it. So yes, at the end of the session, you'll get a copy of the recorded video. What I'll also be doing is that I'll be sharing a copy of the presentation over to your librarians so that they have a copy of the presentation as well as a video recording link. So not to worry, all of you will have access to this information resources. Yeah, so don't worry. If you have problems with the survey link for the time being, I would say actually you have to try it again, because sometimes what happens is that because the session is ongoing and people would usually wait for the session to be over before the whole system is more stable. I would say if you can't access the survey right now, give this a couple of minutes. The anti-bot verification, this is the first for me. Maybe you might want to just wait for a bit. Yeah, so not to worry about it. For the URL of the registration of the webinars, I'll be sending the presentation over. You can scan it from the slides I'll be sending over to you. Yes, so pertaining to the old paper will be tagged with the previous organization. Yeah, that is how it works, because that is the organization that you published that paper with, right? So it has to be, you can't change it, right? It's fixed in that way, because historically speaking, you did publish that paper with the previous affiliation. So we have to keep the record, for posterity's purposes. Yeah, no worries. So guys, don't worry. If you cannot claim the certificate right now, this is a known issue. Just wait for a bit, be patient, and you can claim it subsequently, right? This is just a technical thing. So you give it a couple of hours, or maybe later in the day when you do it and access it, you'll be able to claim it. This is a completely separate platform over which I unfortunately don't have any control over. So you have to be patient about that. Yeah, but don't worry, you'll be able to get the certification eventually. We have faced this issue multiple times. We have escalated this to the product team as well. So yeah. All right, any other questions? I think this has been a very good and lively session so far. Thank you for asking the questions. It really goes a long way, because it always helps to be able to bounce off and to understand what are the things that you're concerned with. Hopefully at the end of the session, you'll be more confident about creating an ORCID profile. You'll be more comfortable using profiles to look for more information, to look for additional topics, collaborators across institutions, across the world. I think, and one thing that I would always say is that when you collaborate internationally, this really helps to drive your profile, right? So don't be afraid to collaborate, to reach out, to work with others. I think that this is really the nature of it these days. When you see an interesting idea, it just makes more sense for you to collaborate. And then at the end of the day of it all, it really helps to drive your overall citation profile. I'll take maybe the last couple of seconds. All right, if no one has any questions here, I'll stop presenting. I will say thank you so much. Yeah, you have to really wait for it. Sorry about that. Just wait for the link. I'll paste it over here one more time, right? So you can just copy and paste it, so you can access this later on as well for your own benefit and your own convenience. I would say just copy paste it on Notepad, then go back to it subsequently. Thank you so much for spending this 1 hour with me today. I hope you find it useful. We have more sessions organized with USM coming right up. So we look forward to seeing you again. Stay safe, stay healthy. Hopefully, I'll see you in real life sooner than later. Yeah, take care. Bye.